Hi, welcome to all of you on my topic International Organization to Current Status. In this video, I am going to talk about the what is United Nations, how was it formed, why was it formed, when was it formed, what are the principal organs of the United Nations and how was it work. Let's move first on the evolution of the UN. The First World War encouraged the world to invest in an international organization to deal with conflicts. Many believed that such an organization would help the world to avoid war. As a result, the League of Nations was born. However, despite its initial success, it could not prevent the Second World War. Many people died and damaged in this war than over before. The United Nations was founded as a successor to the League of Nations. It was established in 1945, immediately after the Second World War. The organization was set up through the signing of United Nations Charter by 51 states. It was founded with the hope that it would act to stop the conflicts between states escalating into wars. Furthermore, since conflicts often arose from the lack of social and economic development, the UN was intended to bring countries together to improve the prospects of social and economic development all over the world. By 2006, the UN had 192 member states. These included almost all independent states, and India is one of them. Now let's talk about some major objectives of the UN. The UN Charter set out four main purposes: maintaining worldwide peace and security, developing relations among nations, fostering cooperation between nations in order to solve economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian international problems, providing a forum for bringing countries together to meet the UN's purpose and goal. Now you might be thinking that how a country would take membership in the UN. Originally there was 51 members of the UN. Today, however, there are 193 member countries, which include most of the countries around the world. Membership in the UN is generally open to any country that is peace-loving and agrees to be bound by the principles in the UN Charter. In order to gain membership, a country must apply. Now I am going to talk about some principal organs of the UN. The organization operates through its six major organs. They are the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, the Trusteeship Council, the International Court of Justice, and the Secretariat. Each is represented by a delegation of not more than 5 representatives. The General Assembly is composed of all the member nations. Its members meet annually at UN headquartered in New York City. The General Assembly can discuss and make recommendations on any matter within the scope of the Charter. It has been called the town meeting of the world. Its specific duties include the election of the members of the Economic and Social Council and some members of the Trusteeship Council. With the Security Council, it elects the judges of the International Court of Justice. The General Assembly appoints the UN Secretary General on recommendations of the Security Council. It also approves the United Nations budget, and it decides how much money each member nation should pay to run the organizations. Decisions in the General Assembly may be made by a simple majority vote or on important questions by a two-thirds vote. Smaller nations have a great deal of influences in the General Assembly because each country casts one vote. The UN Charter established a Security Council made up of the 5 nations that in 1945 were considered most powerful in the world. The Council priority was to maintain international peace and security. The 5 permanent member nations are the USA, the Russian Federation, the UK, France, and China. The UN charters require that the permanent members agree on all decisions made by the Council, except for questions of procedure. If even one permanent member rejects a Council decision, that decision is defeated. The Security Council also has 10 non-permanent members. They serve 2-year term. Each year, the General Assembly elects 5 new nations. These nations are chosen from all over the world. This helped ensure fair representations of all regions The Security Council is considered always in session. Each council nations must have a permanent representative at headquarters in New York so the council can meet on short notice. The Economic and Social Council works under the general guidance and control of the General Assembly. It is composed of 54 member nations that serve 3-year term. There are no permanent members, but it has been customary for the nations of major economic importance, such as and the Russian Federation, to be re-elected. The Council deals with major economic and social concerns. These include economic development, land reforms, and control of narcotics. The Council also coordinates the policies and activities of the UN and the various specialized agencies. The Trusteeship Council was established to help the General Assembly supervise the administration of territories placed under trusteeship. These territories were primarily former colonies of European nations. All the territories originally placed under the United Nations trusteeship are now independent. The Council is composed of all the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. It meets as circumstances demands. The International Court of Justice is the principal judicial organ of the UN. It is composed of 15 judges. They are elected to 9-year term by the General Assembly and the Security Council. The judges are chosen based on their qualification rather than their nationalities. However, no nation may have more than one judge on the court at any given time. The International Court meets at The Hague in the Netherlands. The court has 2 major jobs. It settles disputes submitted by nations for final decisions, and it gives advice to other UN organs and agencies. Its advisory opinions do not have to be accepted, but they carry great weight. It disputes submitted to the court. However, its judgments are supposed to be followed by all the parties. The Secretary General head up the Secretariat, the administrative organ of the UN. The Secretary General may bring any matter to the Security Council that seem likely to endanger international peace. The General Assembly and the Security Council, as well as the other 2 councils, may give the Secretary General special duties to perform. The Secretary General appoints the staff of the Secretariat under rule approved by the General Assembly. The staff must be international, that is, each one of many member nations must be represented. However, member governments are not allowed to influence the staff. In general, the UN Charter emphasizes that the Secretariat of the United Nations should be an international civil services. It should serve the interests of the organizations and only those interests. Now I am going to talk about some other international organizations and NGOs which are working to minimize some international issues and global concern. The Great Depression of 1930s resulted in the downfall of various economies. Less ability of foreign exchange with the economies was a major issue to be tackled to sustain the economic system. Therefore, the most of the economic increased trade barriers and devalued their currencies in order to compete the export market. The byproduct of such measures were increasing unemployment, bad standard of living, declining in the world trade, and slowing down of the economy as a whole. Therefore, in 1944, under an agreement, International Monetary Fund was created to reach upon on a framework which could promote economic cooperation, thereby leading the prosperous global economy. The IMF has 188 member countries, but they do not enjoy an equal say. The top 10 countries have more than 52% of the votes. They are the G8 members: the US, Japan, Germany, France, the UK, Italy, Canada, Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia. The US alone has 16.75 voting rights in the IMF. Let's move on another international organization, which is World Bank. The World Bank was created immediately after the Second World War in 1945. Its activities are focused on the developing countries. It works for human development issues like education, health, agriculture, rural development, environmental protection, infrastructure, and governance. It provides loans and grants to the member countries. In this way, it exercises enormous influence on the economic policies of developing countries. To promote globalization in the world, there is another international body which is World Trade Organization. The World Trade Organization is an international organization which sets the rules for global trade. This organization was set up in 1945 as a successor to the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs created after the Second World War. It has 157 members. All decisions are taken without opposing, but the major economic powers such as the United States, European Union, and Japan have managed to use the WTO to frame rules of trade to advance their own interest. The developing countries often complain non-transparent procedure and being pushed around by big powers. To nullify the weapons of mass destruction, there is another international body which is International Atomic Energy Agency. The International Atomic Energy Agency was established in 1957. It came into being to implement US President Dwight Atoms for Peace proposal. It seeks to promote the peaceful use of nuclear energy and to prevent its use for military purpose. International Atomic Energy Agency terms regularly inspect nuclear facilities all over the world to ensure that civilian reactors are not being used for military purpose. To protect human rights, there is another international body which is Amnesty International. Amnesty International is an NGO that campaigns for the protection of human rights all over the world. It promotes respect for the human rights in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It believes that human rights are interdependent and individual. It prepares and publishes reports on human rights. Governments are not always happy with these reports since a major focus of Amnesty is the misconduct of government authorities. Nevertheless, these reports play an important role in research and advocacy on human rights. Now students, we all are familiar with the various aspects of the UN. While studying system of the UN, we had seen many loops in the UN working system, and because of these loops, they have to overcome with taking and accepting various reforms to make them a stable organization. According to me, there are three main basic reforms that the UN should initiate in their system. Most important reform is increasing the membership of UN Security Council. The council currently represents the post-World War II. The method of electing UN Secretary General is not transparent, comparing it with any international organization of worldwide standing. As a member of Security Council, make nomination for only one candidate, which is approved by the General Assembly. Therefore, the General Assembly should have a greater role in selection process. And the third, but not last, is UN peacekeeping needs serious overhaul. Currently, it is facing several budgetary constraints. Current official budget 2014-15 is only around 57 billion, mostly contributed by US, France and Japan. This is a paltry sum which make up 0.5% of total global military spending to deal with increasingly volatile conflicts. In the increasingly volatile conflicts, the human resources must lack diversity, with India, Pakistan and Bangladesh providing over half of the manpower, so peacekeeping needs more contribution. Now students, we are going to talk about what is United Nations peacekeeping. United Nations peacekeeping is a vital investment in global peace and stability. The UN operates 15 peacekeeping missions on 4 continents to protecting civilians, containing conflicts and helping to build sustainable peace. In partnership with the UN Peacekeeping Force, there are 122 countries, including India, are voluntarily contribute more than 13,000 troops and police. It holds $7.3 billion shared among all member states, which is less than 0.5% of global military spending. Peacekeepers often operate in hostile environments where others cannot or will not go. Peacekeeping is not only about military operation, they bring together experts in human rights and protection of civilians, disarmament, debarment, electoral assistance, support to communities and rule of law. Let's talk about some latest news of India with the UN. UN Secretary General says Dhanyawad to India regarding their contribution on the peacekeeping. Indian Army meant to head UN peacekeeping operation in South Sudan, as UN demands details on civilian killing in Kashmir. India's top engagement on topic. Masood Azhar bans UN can with the help of India. Now we are on the stage where we can understand the contributions of the UN. So my question to all of you is that still there is a need of UN in this contemporary world. According to me, the answer is, as you know that failure of League of Nations is one of the factors of the World War II, and UN was established in order to prevent such type of conflicts. The United Nations role in world affairs is irreplaceable by any other international or regional organization. With this answer, I am going to end my session. Thank you very much to all of you.